everyone for being at today's session. What we're going to be talking about today is the Nymity's Privacy Management Accountability Framework, and I will give you some background on who Nymity is and our approach to basically privacy compliance and how that is applied to GDPR compliance. And so again, we're going to be talking about Nymity's structured approach to privacy management, understanding the Nymity Privacy Management Accountability Framework, and using the workbook, which is a freely downloadable resource. We'll later talk about some of the software as well, but the first step is a free downloadable workbook with the framework. My name is Ray Pathak. I've been in the privacy space for well over 12 years. I lead the privacy solutions, marketing and sales at Nymity, and formerly or prior to coming to Nymity, I was a privacy officer for Target, and for a period of 2 years. So have been on the other side of the table in regards to the operational side of things. Now, in regards to Nymity, who we are, a lot of you may not know who Nymity is, but we are really the pioneers in privacy compliance. We've been in this space for 16 years now. We have always been about supporting the privacy office, and how we do that, or how we've done it in the past. Research. Our company is a data privacy research company first. Innovation through our software solutions. Privacy expertise. We have 35 privacy professionals, including 4 former regulators, including when you're speaking with myself, who have been on the other side of the table. And one thing that's not mentioned there is the thought leadership. So the frameworks and methodologies that have come out of this, including what we're going to be talking about today. And what we do at the end of the day, we provide privacy compliance and accountability solutions that work for organizations. And again, with differentiating, we've been doing this for quite some time. We have notoriety in the market for providing quality methodology and software solutions and so forth. Just more about who we are and where we come from. We talk about laws. We've analyzed over 770 laws, 24,000 hours of thought leadership, and we are really number one in what we call the privacy compliance software space, and that consists of legal research software, privacy support software, and next generational privacy management software as well. Now, when we talk about the structured privacy management, just some quotes from individuals out there. From Trevor Hughes, President and CEO of the IAPP. As privacy operations grow more and more complex within organizations, our members are looking for better tools to document and categorize their many tasks and duties. Nymity's research and tools will surely be welcomed. Or from Marty Abrams, a thought leader in the privacy space. The winds of change in Europe and elsewhere, and companies will need to have evidence in place that they have a data protection program that works. Tools such as Nymity's will be a necessity for organizations trying to avoid barriers to data movement and big fines and settlements. So again, we have been in this space for quite some time, and others have noted that fact as well. And as we start talking about today in some of the resources that we offer, here's just a glimpse. What you're looking at is just a screenshot of our workbook, our framework, and other videos and manuals and so forth that we've created. And all this is available on our website. So if you do go to nymity.com and resources, you will receive and have access to all the free downloadable information on the resources. So again, Nymity provides privacy compliance software, but our niche and our strength has always been in the research and the thought leadership side, which consists of many free downloadable resources for organizations to build up their programs. And you would be able to find that information on our website on nymity.com. Now, what we're going to be going over today is also a free downloadable resource. We have an automation of this called the Nymity Planner, but the starting point for most organizations is to get down pencil and paper, in this case, Excel worksheet. So we have something called the Nymity Privacy Management Accountability Workbook. It is a spreadsheet that covers our framework of 13 different categories, 139 different activities. I'll refer back to this as well. So you get an idea of how you would use this as a starting point to really baseline the organization for the privacy program, and then how to move forward. And today we're going to apply that to how GDPR works. But the beauty of the accountability approach, it's not to one law, right? So it's about the accountability approach. Once you build an infrastructure in place, it can be any law to build your program out. So some of the things that are the challenges that folks are facing or privacy officers are facing, and we're going to address today. How do I determine what is already in place? How do I justify additional investments? How do I maintain evidence? How do I work with privacy team that does not report to me, or reporting status and progress against my goals? And most of all, how am I going to demonstrate success? So again, that is the goals of what we're going to look at today in regards to the program, in regards to this presentation. Let's start, first of all, is, what is structured privacy management? So our definition really is structured privacy management is embedding ongoing privacy management activities throughout the organization, resulting in the ability to demonstrate accountability and compliance with evidence. And there's three main facets to the structured privacy management program: responsibility, ownership, and evidence. The first thing, in regards to responsibility, it's all about privacy management activities that have been implemented and are maintained on an ongoing basis. Again, this is all about the accountability approach. You have technical organizational measures or activities, and you have someone responsible for doing that. Ownership, privacy management activities are embedded throughout the organization within each function of a business unit that processes personal data. And then evidence, documentation is produced as a result of privacy management activity that can be used as evidence of accountability and compliance. This is a core piece of the structured privacy management. If you say you have something in place, you need to be able to demonstrate. One of the core tenets to GDPR is to have be able to demonstrate compliance and demonstrate accountability. And so what an organization needs is evidence to be able to do that, and that's the core of the structured privacy management.
Okay.
Now, when we're
I'll interpret this last part about three elements. Could you turn? Could you?
Yep. Right there. Yeah. So the.
Немножко переведу на русский. I'll interpret it into Russian. Значит, есть три составляющие, что значит работающая система защиты персональных данных. Первая — ответственность. У вас есть лица, ответственные за выполнение каждого из ответственность за выполнение каждого из мероприятий по этому фреймворку. Второе — собственность, то есть наличие ответственного лица и в каждом юните, в каждом подразделении вашей компании или филиале. И также вы в состоянии продемонстрировать в любой момент времени предыдущие два элемента. Это то, что требует регламент, в том числе продемонстрировать с помощью документации. Okay, you may proceed.
Okay. And how that the structured approach works is through our framework. So what you're looking at is a snapshot of the Nymity Privacy Management Accountability Framework. This is something that we had developed through our research. What Nymity had done in the research is looked at what organizations, global organizations, what technical or organizational measures, what infrastructure, what they were putting in place for them to comply with their privacy requirements. We distilled those into 139 activities or technical and organizational measures, and we grouped those into 13 different categories. So when we say responsibility, ownership, and evidence, implementing a faction, which ones apply of these 139 activities. Number two, assigning ownership, and number three, having evidence. Now, the idea behind this framework of 139 activities is not that it is a checklist to be used as a checklist where all 139, an organization is supposed to do all 139. What you're supposed to do is look at it and see which ones apply and then build your program on that. As an example, as we're talking today, for the GDPR maps to 55 different technical and organizational measures. So if you are looking to build a program for GDPR, you would be able to map it to the 55 and then do an assessment to the 55. So again, this is the Nymity Accountability Framework.
Maybe interpret again. Значит, мы разработали вот этот фрейм по соответствию законодательства приватности на базе исследований компаний, которые внедряли различные мероприятия. То есть мы их собрали, проанализировали, структурировали 15 категорий, которые здесь представлены. И во всех 15 категориях есть мероприятия, которые сопровождают каждый из трех элементов, в том числе и evidence. Это не значит, что это чек-лист. Это не значит, что эти 140 мероприятий компании должны отметить и выполнить. Это значит, что это вы выбираете и смотрите, какое из мероприятий подходит под те нормы, которые вы обязаны выполнять по GDPR. Okay. Your part.
Okay. And as we look at the framework and the activities, here's an example, because again, that screen was hard to read. So we're looking at section 1, maintain governance structure. And what you'll notice is that underneath the activities, and again, what privacy management activities are, and take a step back, are procedures, policies, systems, measures, and other mechanisms impacting processing of personal data. And the idea is to maintain roles and responsibilities for individuals responsible for data privacy. So that's an example of one. Other privacy management activities, as I'm reading here, assign responsibility for data privacy to an individual, engage senior management in data privacy, appoint a data protection officer, assign responsibility for data privacy. These are the examples of the activities that make up a privacy program and a subset of the 139 activities that you're looking at here, which is just category 1. Yeah. Go ahead.
Один из разделов, вот Рэй зачитал название этих мероприятий, в частности, назначение ТКО, распределение ролей по защите персональных данных. То есть в этих разделах собраны эти мероприятия. Okay?
Okay. And so, once again, with GDPR, our framework consists of 139 activities. It's for any organization to be able to use no matter what jurisdiction. But for GDPR, because of its importance, and one of the reasons we're here today, is we've mapped the GDPR article by article to our framework, and it maps to 55 of those 139 activities. The information and the mapping, the very granular mapping, is available in this handbook, the GDPR Accountability Handbook 2018. This is also available on our website, and with that, it'll not only tells you, which sections of our framework map to the GDPR, but also which policies and procedures you would need to have in place to comply with those areas, and then what evidence you can use for to demonstrate compliance. So this is a very powerful book. Please obtain this from our website for free.
Значит, вы видели этот фреймворк, и в дальнейшем он существовал гораздо раньше, чем GDPR появился. Когда регламент появился, то мы провели маппинг, мы провели сопоставление каждой из статей регламента с конкретными мероприятиями в этом фреймворке. И нашли те мероприятия, которые напрямую требуются регламентом. И в дальнейшем мы выпустили вот эту ручную настольную книгу по соответствию регламента. Там, кроме названия мероприятий, вы увидите процедуры и процедуры, которые нужно реализовать в рамках мероприятия, какие получите доказательства о том, что это реализовано.
Okay. So as we go through the process of structuring your privacy program, I'm going to go through the 7 steps, and I'm going to show you how you can do that and baseline your organization using our workbook. Again, this is a free downloadable resource and apply it to the GDPR. This is your starting point of complying with GDPR or any privacy program. But again, we're going to talk about GDPR today. The first step is identifying the status of privacy management activities. So with that, again, when we apply to GDPR, there's going to be 55 different activities. You need to basically assess yourself and provide the status. Now, when we talk status, there are 4 statuses in the framework. Number 1 is implemented, and this is a privacy management activity that is already in place and you have sufficient resources to be for it to be maintained. In progress, privacy management activities that are resourced and are in progress of being implemented or are scheduled to be implemented. Desired privacy management activities that are determined to be applicable or relevant for privacy management but are not currently implemented, and then not applicable. Privacy management activities that are not applicable to the organization.
Значит, первое мероприятие, с которого нужно приступить, ну, может быть, не в наших широтах, но где мы вообще ничего не делали, а вот в тех компаниях, которые что-то делали по приватности, это определить, что уже выполнено. И когда вы анализируете вот эти на первом шагу, смотрите мероприятия, которые во фреймворке есть, у них может быть несколько состояний. Первое уже внедрено, implemented. Второе, внедрение сейчас протекает. То есть вы ведете работу, чтобы внедрить, например, это мероприятие. Третье, желательно, да, ну, не так принципиально, но в будущем сделаем, и не подходит, non-applicable. Это то, что не касается вашей организации. То есть вы эти мероприятия из фреймворка можете отметить и понять их статус и отношение, то, насколько они касаются вашей организации, что сейчас с этими мероприятиями происходит. Okay?
Okay. Now, as we go back to the workbook, as an example of our framework, and we'll look at section 1, you will have things like assign responsibility for data privacy to an individual, assign accountability for data privacy at a senior level. Now, for GDPR, again, we have the direct links of which ones map, but the idea is to go through that and then put those statuses that we had mentioned, implemented, in progress, not applicable, right? So that's what you're to do with the framework here. So that would be your first step. Okay. Step 2, once you have identified the status of your privacy management activities, again, so for GDPR, you would have had 55, you would have assessed 55 by implemented, in progress, desired, and not applicable. Of those 55, maybe 5 to 10 didn't apply. So you would have maybe 45 to 50 that you need to basically document. The second step is the ownership side. And the ownership side is that you need to identify and assign owners. And with owners, yeah, did you want to explain? Go ahead.
Вторая часть нашего процесса – это после того, как вы определили, какие из мероприятий требования GDPR к вам подходят, необходимо вызываются статьями. Допустим, вы отбросили 10 как неподходящие, а у вас осталось 45 как подходящие, необходимые для внедрения. Нужно определить, кто несет ответственность. То есть собственник этого мероприятия, если владелец мероприятия, назовем это так, owner. И, кстати, на owner сейчас Рэй продолжит.
Yeah. So as an assigning, this is all about baselining your privacy management. Ownership, an individual is answerable for the management and monitoring of the privacy management activities. And essentially there's two different types of activities. One that are responsible by the Privacy Office. So these are privacy management activities that are responsibility of, again, the Privacy Office. And then there are going to be those activities that are responsible of the organizational departments. So privacy management activities that are responsibility of or operational units like marketing, HR, IT, legal, procurement, business units, etc. And the idea is that you're going to mark down the status.
То есть у вас будет два состояния, да, два основных категории. Could you please, yeah, thanks. Первое – это мероприятие, которое должен выполнять ваш отдел по защите персональных данных, ДПО, должностное лицо. И вторая часть мероприятия, которое несет ответственность, это функциональное подразделение вашей компании, вывода HR, юристов, юридического отдела и прочее. Yeah,
okay. As an example of some of these ownership activities, those that are owned by the Privacy Office and operational units. If we look at maintain governance structure, as an example of a privacy office activity would be to maintain a privacy strategy. An activity owned by the operational unit, as an example, HR, would be requiring employees to acknowledge and adhere to that the data privacy policy, right? Or for maintain data policy, data privacy policy, the Privacy Office maintains that policy. HR maintains a separate employee data privacy policy. So just as an example, when you're baselining the differences in activities between the Privacy Office and the operational units, both have a say in a robust privacy program.
I think it's self-explanatory.
Okay. And so as we go back to the workbook, as an example, if we look at, and we're just going to look at number 1 again, you know, you've gone down the list, you put implemented, desired, not applicable, in progress, and then you're going to put down the owners. Is it the Privacy Office? Is it HR? Is it IT? And you would be able to start listing those responsibilities and who the owners are. And again, this would be the second step in regards to structuring your privacy program, as we're talking about today, of the 7.
То есть вот вы ответили, что нужно внедрять, что желательно, и дальше нужно определить ответственность, и это выполняется в следующем столбце этой рабочей тетради.
Okay. Step 3 is identifying and record resources. So if you have if you've identified the status, you identified owners, you have to identify and record what resources are going to be required. And when we mean resources, we mean people, process, technology, and tools. To structure a privacy program, you need to address what current resources and what resources moving forward will be required to maintain that activity. As an example, for people, employees, full or partial headcount. For processes, example, workflows for approval and sign-off. For technology, file document sharing systems, collaboration tools, and then tools, compliance research subscriptions, subscription newsletters, templates, and samples. This is an example of the resources that would be required and you should document in your privacy program.
Следующая часть — идентификация и описание ресурсов, которые вам необходимы для мероприятия. Ресурсы делятся на 4 категории: люди, процессы, технологии и инструменты. Вот он их там перечислил в качестве примеров.
Okay. When we talk about resources to implement, again, in regards to, well, actually, when we talk about resources, we split those up into 2 different buckets on the workbook: resources to implement and resources to maintain. There are a certain number of resources that are going to be required to implement an activity, right? So resources required to implement activity that is desired or in progress. And then once it's implemented, you still need resources to maintain it, right? Otherwise, the process or activity will be dated. As an example, you put a privacy policy in place, it's implemented, but it needs to be reviewed year after year. So when we're documenting for resources, what resources do you require to implement, and then what resources do you require to maintain that activity?
Ну и здесь ресурсы, в свою очередь, разделяются на ресурсы для поддержания этого мероприятия, например, и ресурсы для внедрения первоначального мероприятия, например. Скажем, политики защиты персональных данных нужно ежегодно пересматривать. Так вот, ресурсы для того, чтобы ее написать изначально, и ресурс временной, финансовый, чтобы ее пересмотреть и скорректировать.
Okay. So going back to the workbook, again, this is what is downloadable from our website. You've done your status, you've done your owners, and now it's resources to implement and maintain. So for those activities that are, as an example, desired or in progress, what do you need to maintain it? So support at a board level, part-time employees at each operational unit, quarterly meetings. And then for the ones that are implemented, what we're going to require, and the ones here, what is it going to require to be maintained, right? So again, implemented for desired and in progress, and resources to maintain for the implemented side of things.
И вот дальше 2 остальных столбца — это перечисление ресурсов в зависимости от того, на какой стадии. Если это мероприятие, которое вы хотите, либо которое вам необходимо реализовать в прогрессе, находится сейчас реализация, то это ресурсы для имплементации. В случае, если это уже реализовано, то необходимо указать ресурсы для того, чтобы поддерживать в актуальном состоянии эту меру.
Okay, so the fourth step out of the 7 is business justification. What is the justification of the business doing this? Now, normally it'll be legal and regulatory, but this needs to be documented and identified as well, especially for organizations that will do above and beyond what is required. So as an example, for business justification, here's, is it legal compliance and regulatory obligations? For the most part, as example, GDPR, that is what it is. Privacy risk management. Some organizations may want to go above and beyond just the baseline of the law. And so that's where it depends on the privacy risk in an organization. Could be alignment with business objectives, or building a culture of privacy as a competitive differentiator, or further reduce privacy risk. Again, or minimize external press coverage, ethics. These are all examples of business justification for investment in the privacy program. Okay. And going back to our spreadsheet again, now this is the next column. So you have, again, your status, your owners, your resources, and then you want to provide justification. Again, for a lot of organizations, it's going to be regulatory. So for the things that are in place, you're going to say you're doing it because it's regulatory legal requirement. But the reason for this is organizations will go above and beyond, and you want to be able to justify that, not just to yourself, but if anyone else asks in the organization as well. So that is the business justification section of of our framework.
Дальше оправдание либо обоснование мероприятий, которые там несколько есть поводов для обоснования. Первое, самое основное, требует закон. Другое, мероприятие необходимо в целом для поддержания системы защиты персональных данных. Может быть, закон это не требует напрямую. И эти обоснования записываются вот в следующую колонку.
Okay. So moving along, so after business justification, probably one of the most important is identify and document evidence. As you're putting together and structuring your privacy program, identifying status, assigning owners, recording resources, business justification is the ability to identify and document evidence so that you may be able to demonstrate compliance and accountability on demand. And so what we talk about here as an example is the evidence that you can provide that to show compliance with any of these activities. So as an example, maintain data privacy policy as the activity. The evidence is your data privacy policy. Integrate data privacy into email monitoring practice. Your evidence is email monitoring policy and procedure, right? Measure comprehension of data privacy concepts using exams. The evidence is system-generated reports of data privacy exam scores. Or providing notice in all marketing communications, examples of email marketing communication. Again, these are examples of now creating evidence for these activities. And these activities, the natural byproduct of these activities is evidence.
И следующий этап – это определение доказательств, потому что вы выполнили эту меру. И вот здесь на этой таблице такой пример. Можно не фотографировать, это есть в пути компанией. Значит, здесь, например, такое мероприятие, как поддержание в рабочем состоянии политики приватности и какой является сама политика приватности. Если у вас интегрировать и включить приватность и правила защиты персональных данных в практике email-маркетинга, то тогда пример такой рассылки, такого email, это является evidence, доказательством о том, что вы это выполнили. Yeah?
Okay. And so going back to our workbook, now you have added your sixth column, and that's your evidence. So now you can start detailing what evidence you have, and if you wanted to even provide hyperlinks in the spreadsheet. But this is an example of now you're starting to populate and documenting your program, status, owners, resources, justification, and evidence. But the tool allows you to do that. And again, if you were doing this for GDPR, you would be able to identify those 55 activities, you go through these steps, and then start populating the evidence for those things that you have in place, right? But it goes beyond GDPR. This framework was created before the GDPR, but it's flexible enough to be used with anything today and any future law tomorrow.
Таким образом, вот новая появилась колонка, это доказательства, и вы заполняете ее доказательствами, которые подтверждают, что вы выполнили мероприятие, несмотря на то, что это даже фреймворк был разработан до GDPR, но, вот, скажем, требования, это я уже от себя говорю, требования даты, accountability, подразумевает наличие таких доказательств, которые вы можете перечислить в этой таблице, и, кстати, можете указать их в качестве, можете дать ссылку на конкретные документы или evidence из этой таблицы, чтобы человек, который его посмотрит, мог получить доступ к этой информации. Я говорю про аудитор. А я
Okay, 2 more steps. 6th step is identifying mandatory or additional. And so the idea here is which activities are mandatory, and this would be by the letter of the law or by regulatory requirements, and what things that are you doing above and beyond. It's not required, but you're doing it to reduce privacy risk and so forth, right? So as an example, mandatory activities may be assigning responsibility for privacy to an individual, or maintaining a data privacy incident breach response plan, or providing data privacy notice at all points where data is a collection. These are activities that are usually linked to regulatory. Additional activities above and beyond could be things like holding an annual data privacy day week. Not required, but they will help further reduce privacy risk. Or maintain data privacy incident breach metrics. You know, not required, but would help further reduce privacy risk. Or maintain frequently asked questions to respond to queries from individuals. So the idea is, even though GDPR maps to 55, there may be other activities that you've added in to further reduce privacy risk for a number of different reasons.
И что касается оставшихся мероприятий, из этих 139, что с ними? Это дополнительные мероприятия, которые могут помочь реализовать требуемые регламентом. Они действительно напрямую не требуются, но могут существенно снизить риски для персональных данных и субъектов данных.
Okay. And so going back to our spreadsheet, you would be able to go through and add now the mandatory element to this, what's mandatory, what's additional, and document your program, and again, structuring your program, right? So again, as you're going through these steps, you've now identified another area to document and structure your privacy program. That is actually, those are the main elements of structuring your privacy program: your status, your owners, your resources, your justification, your evidence, and your mandatory. The next step is really managing the workbook, and I'll talk to that right now.
Таким образом, у нас 6 основных элементов в этом фреймворке, в таблице. Это статус, ответственные, ресурсы, необходимые для внедрения, ресурсы, необходимые для поддержания, обоснование, доказательства, также насколько это обязательно. И дальше идет управление этими мероприятиями в нашей рабочей тетради. Я сейчас сюда перейду.
Okay. So now we're talking about managing the workbook. You've identified all your 6 different areas. So this is what the spreadsheet looks like. You can now manage your privacy program, right? So if you've identified your status, you can now look at things that are desired or in progress and provide updates. And you can then use this as a way to manage your program. So again, this can be used to first assess where you are in regards to your program, but it can then be used to manage your program. Now, this is a manual version of this, but the next slides, I'm going to show you how we have automated software solutions to this as well. But once again, this is freely downloadable, and then I'm going to show you the software solutions that automate this function.
Ну вот рабочая тетрадь, которой можно вписывать данные данные поля. Он не автоматизирован, это ручная работа, а сейчас я перейду к автоматизированной версии, которую мы разработали на уровне программного обеспечения.
So in regards to the software solutions that Nymity has, and I'll go into the different ones that we have, but the first one we have is called Nymity Benchmarks. This tool allows you to basically assess yourself against our framework, automates what we just did in that in the workbook. Not only does it allow you to benchmark yourself or assess yourself, it then benchmarks against over 200 other organizations that have used our framework if you wanted to provide information or metrics on comparisons to organizations in your industry or your jurisdiction. And this is Nymity Benchmarks.
Первый продукт это позволяет определить, замерить ваше состояние относительно других компаний в секторе и в целом других компаний. Это benchmarks.
And then Nymity Planner, it's really the automation of that spreadsheet if you wanted to start identifying your status, your resources, your justification, mandatory, and so forth, but automate it so you have a dashboard view of your program, on-demand reporting, on-demand demonstration of your program. That is the Nymity Planner tool.
Планер это фактически автоматизированный, то есть на уровне ПО Excel, который вы смотрели, только он уже автоматизирован, который позволяет в дашбордах выставлять ответственных, статус и прочее.
And one of the things you didn't mention, one thing that differentiates us from others is that our tools are built on top of a methodologies and framework layer. So these tools are built on top of the Nymity accountability framework that you saw, and that goes for all our tools.
Что отличает вот эти инструменты, эти продукты, это то, что они не просто с нуля созданы, они базируются на этой методологии, которая широко используется, которую мы сами же разработали, и фактически они на этом фундаменте строятся, они в полном соответствии с фреймворком.
The last solution I really wanted to highlight is something called Nymity Templates. I think this is the most practical and probably powerful tool that could be available for the folks that are listening here. And what it is that we've created or we built up a library of over 800 downloadable resources, and it's all structured in our privacy management accountability framework. So for each of the activities, you have downloadable resources to then implement the program. So as you're doing GDPR or anything to that effect, and you're looking to jumpstart your program, nothing gets more powerful than the template solution to help organizations out.
И вот, наверное, то, что может найти аудитории здесь присутствующие, это в первую очередь темплейты, шаблоны, которые структурированы по нашему фреймворку, они подобны мероприятие. И, в общем-то, это фактически библиотека из 800 шаблонов, которые могут быть скачаны, дополнены, если конкретное мероприятие вам подходит и необходимо.
Okay, and then lastly, in regards to our suite of solutions. So I just showed you three. They were all from the Privacy Office support software. Again, we say we are leaders in privacy compliance software. We have three different categories of that: legal research software, Privacy Office support software, privacy management software. The legal research software is all about keeping you informed, like Nymity Research, law tables, MoFo notes, understanding your requirements, being aware of alerts, changes in law enforcement actions. Privacy Office support software, as I showed you, Planner, Benchmarks, Templates, is all about operationalizing your privacy program and basically an automation of that workbook. And then we have something called privacy management software, where you're looking to automate in a section or an area of your privacy program, like PIAs or inventory or organizational assessments. And that's where we have expert PIA, expert mapping, and tester. And that really is our software suite of solutions. Again, it's built on top of that privacy management accountability framework layer. And with that, thank you for attending the session.
Ну и это были всего лишь три продукта, которые я продемонстрировал, а у нас были clear returns и previous slides.
каких-то там